let's go ahead and pick up where we left off with Ari. We were in the middle of an intimate moment here. I fell back against... Oh, crap, hang on. Okay, now we can pick up where we left off with a intimate moment with Ari. I fell back against the pillows, this time unable to hold back the moaning gasp. His touch was hesitant at first, but I could almost feel him, watching my reactions, gaining confidence each time I reacted positively to what he was doing. I could only cling to him, gripping his soft hair as he continued. Ari moved one arm under my back, pulling me up to his mouth. Kisses traveled over my shoulders, chest, then stomach, following the path his hands had traveled earlier. One of his arms hooked under my thigh, drawing my left leg over his shoulder as he moved his head lower. Oh, God. It was so... I couldn't think. I wanted more. I wanted to touch all of him, to wrap him around myself. Ari, I want... He looked up at me again, his silver eyes at once intense yet hesitant. Are you certain? Are you? The question hung in the air between us, in silence punctuated by his heavy breaths and mine. I thought he might change his mind. But no. Without warning, the warmth and weight of his body was back, pulling me closer, kissing me, and swallowing my soft cries as he pressed his hips tightly against mine. I wrapped my legs around his hips to pull him closer. A heavy gasp escaped him as his erection pressed against me in a way I don't think he expected. Okay, so I guess this does get pretty explicit. His hands tightened against my back, and he let out a slow, tense breath. Our eyes met again, and he held my gaze as he started working the rest of my clothes off. There was a flurry of motion after that, rustling of clothes, gasps, as skin met skin again. Ari seemed determined to explore every contour of my body, and I could only give myself up to him. The world faded away, and for a little while, a blissful while, there was nothing but Ari, his voice, his hot skin against mine, and my quiet surprise at how the stoic man I thought I knew was capable of such gentle passion. He was so perfect. Every part of him, every sleek contour of his body, and every reaction to my touch. And when I finally had him beneath me so I could return all that passion to him, I couldn't help but wonder at just how amazing he was. Reality only began to seep in again after we had been lying quietly for a while, trying to catch our breaths, and he asked if he was heavy. That's actually pretty funny. I wasn't sure how explicit this was gonna get. I have dabbled in the realm of erotica, let me put it that way. So I have definitely read more explicit stuff than this, just not to the general public. So yeah, it was very tasteful, let me put it that way. You're not heavy. Even so, Ari propped himself up and looked down at me. His face was suspiciously red. I'd never seen him look embarrassed before, but he certainly looked it in that moment. I set my hand on his cheek and gently turned his face to look at me before I leaned up to kiss him, or to kiss his lips. That was incredible. The red in his face deepened, and I was charmed by the way he was entirely unable to look me in the eyes. I'm having so many thoughts right now. For one, it's really cute how like they slept together, and now he's so shy he doesn't even want to look her in the eyes. Cause it's like 5 minutes ago, y'all just did a lot more than maintain eye contact. I can also totally relate to his like, oh, am I too heavy? That is always how I feel whenever, you even just cuddling with somebody, I'm like, oh God, am I too heavy? Like, I don't want to make your arm go numb or something. It was so endearing to see him bashful after that. Do you want to go have a shower and clean up? It's alright if you want to, but you can stay here as well. He seemed to mull it over before he let out a long breath, nodding more to himself than me. I will, I think, if it's alright. It is, though I wouldn't object if you stayed here tonight. I He shut his eyes and leaned into my hand, then gave me such a soft smile my breath caught in my throat at the sight of it. I, too, would prefer that. I tried to not be obvious about watching him gather his clothes and go. Not too obvious, anyway. I would have been content to lie there with him longer, but I had a feeling he was going to need a little time to come to terms with what had just happened, and I was okay with giving him a little space to do that. As I heard the water come on in the other room, I put my arm over my eyes and lay there for a moment before I got up to clean myself and put something back on. I woke up suddenly from heavy sleep. I wasn't sure why. Whatever dream I'd been having faded rapidly, leaving only a sense of disquiet behind. I had the feeling it hadn't been pleasant. It wasn't until I rolled over that I remembered Ari had stayed over. I also realized he was gone. Still groggy, I sat up and looked around. He was only a few feet away, sitting on a chair, looking down at one of my books. I had no idea how he was reading in the dark, but then maybe he didn't need to actually see it. I had no idea how precise his clairvoyance actually was. That would be sick. If, you were capable of clairvoyance to the point where you didn't even have to, read the book. You could just be in its general proximity and get it. After a moment's hesitation, I got up to make sure he was all right. Of course, he noticed me move right away. Morgan. Okay. So we can either say, why did you leave? Or it can be hard getting used to sleeping with someone, can it? Well, I know because I played a couple routes already. Wink, wink. I know typically the affectionate answer is usually the one to go with, so. I sat on the edge of the chair next to him, tipping my head to the side. It's hard getting used to sleeping with someone, isn't it? Yes. It isn't bad, just strange. I understand. Rumor has it I'm a bit of a blanket thief. There was an unexpected struggle for them. Poor Ari. Sorry about that. I didn't mean to disturb you. You didn't have to get up. You didn't disturb me. I just wanted to make sure you were alright. I am. Why does he seem so sullen? A look of hesitation passed over his face, and I was struck again by how new all this was for him. Is he nervous or anxious? Is that what's going on? I leaned over to kiss the corner of his mouth. You can come back whenever you're ready. And I won't be offended if you need to go home to get some sleep. Ari shut his eyes and pulled me into a gentle embrace. You aren't required to make these sorts of concessions for me. Well, sure, she's not required to, but that's sort of part of, being intimate with someone is understanding that their needs may be different than yours. I leaned my head against his, enjoying the warmth of his body heat. I think part of caring for someone means understanding their needs. Yeah, see, Morgan gets it. If you need space, it's okay to ask for it. He laid his head gently against my shoulder, tightening his arms. You're always like this. This is why I couldn't help but try to stay beside you. I smiled a little and gave him another squeeze before I stood again. I'm going to try to sleep a little more. I believe I shall as well. We returned to the bed, and after that, I did my best to be as generous as possible with the blankets. You guys could just have different blankets, use different blankets. Though I suspected it would be a long time before I'd really overcome my blanket stealing anyways. Ari's sleeping face was the last thing I saw before I shut my eyes and drifted off to sleep. Chapter 13, Into the Labyrinth. Hey everyone, come on in. Sorry Magnus isn't here at the moment. He asked me to lead this thing today. I hope you all don't mind. Ari set a hand at the small of my back as we filled in Magnus's office behind Vaughn and Caleb. I had to resist looking back and smiling. We hadn't told anyone about the developments in our relationship. We hadn't even discussed telling others. Yesterday had been busy, to say the least. Well, for him. I'd gotten the day off. Oh, now I feel bad. We'd seen each other briefly in the evening, but he was tired and had gone to his place to get some much-needed sleep. I was supposed to have the day off as well, doctor's orders, but had gotten a notification of a high-priority meeting regardless. And so here I was. It was just the 8 of us from the guard, or 7 of us since Magnus was absent. So what's going on? Finally, an update on everything, I assume. As seemed usual for these meetings, everyone just sort of took up whatever space was available around the office. I took one of the chairs in front of Magnus's desk, while Vaughn took his chair and casually spun around while she listened. Typical Vaughn. It's so interesting how Magnus is like the head of Endgame, and no one has any respect for him or his things. Yeah, it's a big one. We'll be filling in the rest of the high-ranked teams later on. The council has been going nuts all morning, and Maggie's buried so deep in the nano system right now, he can't even drag himself out of bed. It took me a second to remember Maggie is what they call Magnus. Ari casually leaned against the side of my chair and folded his arms over his chest. All business as usual. What exactly is going on, Mara? Well, to start, I think you're all aware of the scanning incident the day before yesterday. The issue with some of us having undergone some sort of brain scan while we were out in the city? That's the one. Did they find the culprit? We didn't catch them yet, but we have a lead. Actually, you're the one who helped put us on the right track with your report. The others glanced my way. Gina? Who the hell is that? Oh, I just have to take a minute to say I love her character design. Her eyes, I think they're like purple or gray, I don't know, but they're really pretty. She was one of the scientists with Trent's group, the team of 3 visiting from Sierra. She went missing during the incident with the explosions. I thought there might be something suspicious about it based on the information I had from Trent, so I mentioned it in my report. Was she also the one responsible for the attempted hack of our system files then? We believe so, yes. Hang on. Don't jump ahead. What exactly have we learned? Well, part of the issue with the scars, what set you on alert, is that it's usually impossible to perform that precise scan at a distance, right? But if anyone tries to scan any of us from up close, we'd have noticed. So how anyone scanned anyone else was a mystery. Presumably, then, some new information has come to light pointing to this Gina woman. In her report, Morgan mentioned having spoken to Trent in the infirmary after the bombing incident. That's right. They were sent back here and received treatment in our medical ward. I had a brief conversation with him then. You mentioned in your report that Trent said Gina was often at odds with the rest of the team because she, being from New Albion, was less sympathetic to the bid for independence and the general plight of the colonists. That's right. He mentioned it for the first time that day. And now she's conveniently missing after having potentially fled the vicinity of an explosion moments before it happened. That's what stood out to me. It was almost as if she had prior knowledge. She was also the one who suggested the 3 of them go sightseeing that morning. It felt like a connection, but it made little sense given the group that took credit for the bombings were supposedly sympathetic to dissidents. We thought so too. So we decided it was time to have a chat with Matt and Trent to see if we could get more information about her. I was so sure that it was Matt. Interrogating them made sense, all things considered. At this point, Endgame couldn't keep dancing around and trying to avoid stepping on toes, could they? During the interrogation, it came to light that the same group of labs looking into reproducing certain types of S-class psi waves via came to light that the same group of labs looking into certain waves via technology. This sentence is... I don't think that's a... Unless, my eyesight is getting really bad, I think that's a run-on sentence. Also working on a prototype long-range bioscanner. It would be something that would allow them to locate people trapped in collapsed mines and get a precise readout of their medical condition. But it could also allow for long-distance scans of brainwaves. Matt says they weren't aware of a functioning prototype, but it seems like a pretty convenient coincidence, doesn't it? What's more, that entire branch of labs is owned, funded, and operated by New Albion and the Triad. But doesn't this mean we're saying the Triad is behind the attacks on Brazil? And trying to pin it on the Sierra dissidents? An incident like this would really hurt their cause. This is really interesting. I actually skipped through all of this during my first playthrough. Because I was so wrapped up in the romance. I was like, I just want the romantic part. I just want to know what happens next between Arya and Morgan. I don't care about the plot. But now that I'm taking the time to read this, it is really interesting the parallels that we see here, where we have sort of this corrupt government and them really doing things they shouldn't be doing, and then them trying to blame it on the Sira dissidents. It, I do wonder with Ash, if there is any sort of anything that's happened in our previous history that has inspired her to make the plot the way that it is, because I am seeing a lot of parallels, which maybe this is totally not based on that, and it's just an example of like human nature repeating itself, but I do find it really interesting. Anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and end the episode here. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I think I'm remembering now that we have one other steamy scene in the near future. So, yeah. I'm so glad I'm not streaming with a webcam. Or not making this video with a webcam because my cheeks are so red now. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.